Hello, everyone. I'd like to put a special episode up this week in honor of J.D. Crowe's passing. I'm sure many of you know who J.D. Crowe is, but for those of you who don't, he was an iconic pioneer of the banjo, specifically bluegrass, but later on country and Americana. And just a day or two ago, my father and I did a full episode of Deep Stacks about J.D. Crowe and specifically several of his albums in particular. But it went a little long. It went over the 15-minute limit that we have right now on our channel. So we kind of decided to really do him justice that we're going to hold on to that episode for a little longer. But in the meantime, to honor his passing, we decided maybe we would do something we've never done before, which is put up some clips of our behind the scenes pre-talk that we do, where he and I, just before we start recording the episode, we have a little conversation where we get our facts straight and we open up some records and talk about what we're going to say. And anyway, the two records that we talk about in the episode, just so you guys know, is this Rounder 44, as it's often known. It's the 44th album in the Rounder Records catalog. This is actually the copy that came from the store as the promotional mark from the record shop, and that's of course a Horizon Records sticker from my dad's store with his name on it, because it was probably kind of a permanent title in the play stack for a long time. And then the other record that we talked about is My Homemade in the Hall of Fame, which is 3 years later, which is kind of a totally different band. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoy this. It was a really fun little window into kind of what happens before we do the episodes. We just wanted to do something in honor of his memory. He's meant a lot to me as an artist. I learned pretty much the entirety of My Homemade in the Hall of Fame on my first beater guitar when I was in jazz school, just to kind of get away from the jazz world. I would come home to my Greenwich Village apartment and learn these beautiful country songs. One of them is a Jimmy Buffett song. There's also some very country stuff like Sin City, Tennessee Blues, My Window Faces the South. The title track is a really cool song. I'll Be Your Stepping Stone is a beautiful ballad, like classic country ballad. The whole band is fronted by Keith Whitley. Very cool stuff. If you're into kind of outlaw country, just in general, old school or new school, I would say. Living here in Nashville, it's a country's a charged word. Depends on which perspective you're coming from, but I think everyone will dig this because the songs are great. I mean, it's got the Jimmy Buffett song, what is it? Railroad Lady, which I used to sing. It's great. Anyway, Showboat Gambler's on here. And then this is for more like the bluegrass purists. I mean, this is like Jerry Douglas, Ricky Skaggs, Tony Rice fronting the band. I mean, this is iconic bluegrass to me, like up there with Tony Rice's Manzanita, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 other classics for sure. But this is really cool. And in the episode, my dad talks about the extremely collectible LP cover of this album where J.D. Crowe is flipping the bird very subtly. It's a very valuable bluegrass record. My dad kind of shows that. He's got that copy, which is cool. And he talks about, he spoke to J.D. Crowe during COVID, actually, for about an hour, promoted him many times. During one of the photo shoots that I did in my early Brooklyn folk years, when I was deep kind of in the Bob Dylan phase of my life and was playing shows with guitar and harmonica and, just having a blast, rubbing shoulders with the soon-to-be Lana Del Rey and playing shows with just all sorts of really cool bands and artists. And I did a photo shoot with a photographer named Zandy Mangold, who to this day is probably one of the most famous photographers who's ever taken my picture. And for whatever reason, I showed up with a J.D. Crowe t-shirt on that I had, which was bright yellow, that I still have. Maybe I'll dig up those pictures and throw them in here just to show you guys. It's pretty cool, but I was just that much a fan. It was that much a statement to me, like these two records in particular, but his whole catalog really in general. So until we can get episodes longer than 15 minutes and really do him justice, because my father and I had a great talk about all the different stories that relate to him, things we've heard from people that played with him. To really do him justice, we're going to hold on to that for a little bit and just throw up this kind of behind the scenes look at our pre-talk conversation, which is also pretty cool. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Please go listen to some J.D. Crowe. He's an amazing American artist that everyone should hear more of. Those 2 records are great, but all his stuff is amazing. And please join us in the comments, like our channel. Please subscribe, because that's a big part of us getting to have larger privileges like doing videos longer than 15 minutes, which would mean a whole lot to us. So I hope y'all have a great new year and look forward to speaking to you sometime soon. Okay, well, let's go ahead and sort of prep the episode then. So I didn't actually realize his actual passing was on Christmas Eve. And
Christmas, the wee hours of the morning, Christmas Eve day, which, for point of fact, depending on what level of details you know, was basically almost a year to the day that Tony Rice passed away last Christmas.
it's so wild. I mean, it's just one of those things that's beyond sort of, yeah, I don't know. Also, it's got to be a song. I'm gonna write that song.
We'll be ready. You bring it on when you're ready.
Yeah, gosh. Anyway, as always, I was listening back again right before we got ready to do this. Some of the stuff was quasi, not bringing me to like sobbing in my hands or anything, but just kind of touching that place that I deep down in your chest or something. Just I don't know. Some of the stuff is just so deep in me. It brings back a lot of memories, and some of the songs too are so old. Like on this record, like the Crying Holy to the Lord. There's like some old gospel songs. Some of that stuff too is just like deep in the, I don't know, like the DNA of mankind or something. Just the melodies. A few other things I noticed was one of the songs has an electric bass on it. And I know he was kind of a pioneer of having drums and even sort of a very dark, mellow sounding electric bass in his bands a little bit. I'm pretty sure Bobby Sloan is playing an electric bass on that Nashville Blues track. Have you ever noticed that?
I don't really know that I noticed that, but he may have. Or JD was sneaky about putting in studio stuff too, which he caught a lot of flack for later on.
Well, you were one of the ones that I think pointed out to me and said that he was kind of a pioneer of having drums in what was essentially a bluegrass band. I mean, when I say drums, they were like,
Oh yeah, but no, he used drums, keyboards. All the years I saw him, he had Steve, aka Boom Boom Bryant, on electric bass on every single gig I ever saw during the era when I was able to see JD live a lot.
There's a few things I might draw out right here that I might actually read if we have time, or if we don't have time, I might do this as a separate segment because there's a John Hartford thing in here that's really cool and pretty.
Yeah, Hartford really lays it out there. I think some of the stories really about JD Crowe in general, not just this record. If we're going to nail it in his passing, in terms of the timeliness of commenting on and lifting a glass, so to speak, to the late great JD Crowe.
So on that note, so for me, the next thing I was going to say is my Homemade in the Hall of Fame is probably the other album that I'm most truly like. If I was really grabbing things running out of a fire, those two albums of his are probably the ones that I would. I mean, obviously his catalog is pretty staggering, and
No, I agree. That's the one that really, sort of reaches in and grabs me of his many records that do so, but particularly that one, and of course, Ye Old Rounder 44.
Yeah, I like an album so well known that it's almost just referred to by that number, which is obviously partly because it's a self-titled. And I have a great copy, Dad. This is your old promo copy, see, with a punch hole in your name like you used to do. I'll take a picture of that, so at the end it won't just be like an Amazon JPEG of the cover. It'll actually be like that cover. What's the story about whoever had a bird flicked a bird on the cover? What's that all about?
That if you're collecting bluegrass, that's one of the, I would say, top 10 records you want to try and aspire for, is to have the original. Doesn't say JD Crowe on either. It says the New South, and JD's flipping a bird behind Bobby Sloan's.
Oh, and you have the one that's there.
Yeah, that's the one.
So what? Well, how did it come out? So there was just a really short pressing, and then there was another pressing that was more.
They just didn't notice it. But when it came out the next time, it was JD Crowe and the New South, and another shot from the same session was supplanted, the one you see on your CD cover there.
Except that Jerry Douglas is not on that other cover. Are all five of the guys on the
black? No, any of the covers.
Oh, gotcha. I see. I can see the four guys there.
I don't know if I can say it on camera, but what Jerry told me is I asked him, I said, well, why are you not in these pictures?
Man. I'm trying to remember.
It's
Sin City.
my man in the Hall of Fame, I'll Be Your Stepping Stone, which was like is it a George Jones song or something? Oh man, Railroad Lady, and they do a version of Sin City. You can just fucking die. And the other one I really like is
Stepping Stone. Stepping Stone, a George Jones song, is that right?
I don't know if that is. That needs to be Googled. It sounds like a George. Another one I love is Tennessee Blues.
God, yeah.
And the one that always tore the place down was My Window Faces the South.
Yeah, because it's like blisteringly fast, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just a real up tempo. And Tennessee Blues was a harmony slow song. A place I can use, the place I can lose, these Tennessee Blues. Oh my God.
He says basically, in the old days, bluegrass bands like their country and pop counterparts were normally organized around one or two star performers. The remaining band members were sidemen who played more or less when and what they were told. In recent years, however, the pattern has begun to alter, particularly among the more progressive-minded bands and group efforts with no single dominant star figure emerging. It's pretty astute what he says, actually. The new approach allows each individual musician far greater creativity and sense of participation than he would otherwise enjoy. Nevertheless, the old saying about freedom demanding responsibility holds as true for music as it does everywhere else. And that's kind of profound for the current times. And a multiple partnership requires that each member judge correctly when to assert his own individuality and when to subordinate it to the overall group sound. And when all the elements come together, the results can be spectacular beyond the conception of a single band leader. I mean, it's pretty cosmic what this dude is saying. It would be hard to find a more brilliant example of a successful group effort than the New South. Old Sally Gooden sounds like a fresh new tune with fiddle and driving banjo inseparably intertwined and complemented by a very hot guitar solo. God, rest in peace. Tony Rice's sensitive vocal set off by an understated, almost bare accompaniment creates a heartbreaking, beautiful classic of Ian Tyson's Summer Wages, which I honestly, full disclosure, have shed tears over in the past. That song is like, don't you think? I mean,
years are gambled and lost like summer wages.
God almighty. Throughout the entire album, original treatments of contemporary material are interspersed with tastefully distinctive versions of older bluegrass tunes. Creativity abounds, but amazingly enough, it is always very musically totally under control and unerringly directed towards heightening the impact of each song as a whole.